Welcome one, welcome all to Pit Road Productions once more for the Almeida Racing League, the first endurance round of Season 6. We've got a single race coming up for you all today, and it's certainly going to be an interesting one. We're at a track that's not very often used anymore. Phoenix Raceway 2008 road course. There's going to be some very nice details around here that I'm looking forward to bringing to you all here on Pit Road Productions and on Swelio Almeida's channel as well. Of course, I'm not the only one in the commentary box. I'm not even the one producing. My name is Reese Gardner, and Daniel Zippy Salmon is the one beside me and responsible for the stream that you are laying your eyes on at this very moment. I'm very interested to see how this round's going to go, Zippy. A bit of new territory for the Almeida Racing League at a course that, honestly, I can't even remember the last time I saw this place.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't pop up too often here in the schedule, and certainly I have a feeling as to why not. It's actually a really, really fun course, and if I remember rightly, I think I actually remember watching videos of Denny Stripling, actually a real world racer as well, doing laps in a spec racer Ford around here. So certainly, you know, I love it when you get the real cars at the real track, ladies and gentlemen. Just really adds to that. But certainly, Reese, I do know that you're a bit more familiar with this. But before we get into this track, or at least the anomalies, I guess you could say, with this track, let's have a look at indeed of where we've been and where we're going.
Yeah, Season 6 started all the way back in Old 25. Watkins Glen round 1, then Barber Motorsports Park for round 2. We're here at Phoenix for round 3. Montreal next week with Aragon and Oschersleben to round out the first half of the season at the end of January. Moving through to February, Catalunya will play host to the second endurance round of the season. Then we go to the Chicago Street Circuit, Alton Park and Imola before we round out the season at Lebanon. Nice variety of tracks for this season, and it's certainly going to test the driver's abilities, as will this format for tonight. An hour of practice has already elapsed. The drivers are currently in their 15 minutes of open qualifying. There will be a single heat of 15 minutes before a 40-minute feature that will likely require a pit stop. There is no fast repair, and there's a fixed setup, so every driver is working with the same machinery, and they'll have to do their darndest to find their way around this labyrinthine combined road and oval course.
Yeah, it definitely is one of the more unusual tracks recently. It's got to say, I'm enjoying the variety, don't get me wrong. It is not on the Princess Approved track list, ladies and gentlemen. Before anybody starts to make that kind of assumption, it's not in that category. But certainly, I have had the pleasure of driving before. I think I actually drove it in the Skippy. I gotta say, that's a car that's often underestimated as well. That could be a good one for the students. Certainly, low power, very limited aero, and very limited top speed. But I gotta say, Reese, I know you want to do a little bit of a walk around on this track. By all means, pick a driver, sir. We'll get you on board if you like.
All right, let's see who's about to start a lap. You know what? Cairo Enns is just entering the oval again. We do like to showcase Cairo from time to time, so hopefully he'll be able to take us on a nice ride around this circuit. Now, this is Phoenix Raceway as it was in 2008. This track technically doesn't exist anymore. The track was reprofiled in 2011, and the start-finish line is at a completely different place. You blend into turn 1 for the road course. It's a kink that takes you past the pit exit there, and you just keep turning left. It's impossible to find the apex here. Every time I've driven this circuit, I always miss it, but that cone does provide a little bit of context. You stay flat out through turn 5 here, and then turn 6, a little tap of the brakes. Cairo just maintaining his rotation there into turn 7. Another one of these never-ending corners that blends right into turn 8 here, and then you spat out onto a little straight with a minor diversion. That's turn 9 right there, a sort of flat-out chicane, if you will. Then turn 10, the hairpin. The bumps here are quite substantial, especially coming back onto the oval. And, well, it's basically a nearly flat-out run back onto the start-finish straight, which, as of right now, is actually the back straight of the current layout of Phoenix Raceway. Through the final corner, Cairo Enns comes, and that is a lap of Phoenix Raceway as it was. God, that's getting on 8 years ago, and wow, what a fantastic drive for Cairo Enns up to P2 in the session. That is quite impressive.
Oh, I'd say that as Jose Gustavo has just gone, or Ian Joyner, one of these guys. I'm going to say it's probably Ian Joyner at this point, has just gone and slingshot himself to the front of the pack. But I've got to say, he's currently leading the M class in terms of qualifying position. But you know what, Reed, that does bring on a good point. We should maybe take a look here at some of the points. And ladies and gentlemen, we've got more points for you this week. And let's start out with the overall Academy totals.
Oh, here we go. So, with all the splits combined, Charles Krasic is the one on top. Darren Sharples and Brian Jabelski, that's a driver that I am familiar with. Rounding out your top three, Mason Kuhn is the top driver from Split 1, who is currently in the standings there in P4 overall. Ian Kwan rounding out the top 5 in the overall standings. We go to the Split 1 Premier standings, and Mason is of course on top by quite some margin there. Rupesh Pineni is going to have to find some miracle here to close that points gap, but he's under a lot of pressure from Adrian Hopp and Ian Joyner, not to mention Zoltan Zomator, who is well within the margin to try and make some spanners thrown to the works in that top 5. In the club class, Felipe Bulls is the one on top. Cairo ends P2 with Tyler Harker, Valdas Vansavicius and Kemal Kasim rounding out the top 5 there. Looks like our points leaders have got a bit of an early getaway here, this being only the 3rd round of the season, but we have 11 rounds total over the course of the season, Zippy. Those standings could look completely different by the time we end the season.
Oh, absolutely. And certainly we've actually got a couple of new drivers snuck in as well. I did see one of them a minute ago. It's this gentleman here who's just got out of the car, Kevin Lau. Can't say I've seen him before, and I wasn't quite sure I put him in the right class initially, but certainly after going P2 overall, ladies and gentlemen, I'm feeling pretty confident he would indeed be Premier class in the top slip right now. Looks like Cairo Enz has just gone purple in the sector as well. We're going to have to see if he gets a little bit quicker. And what I can tell you is on the side of that car, that's CCE, that's Canadian Cutting Edge. That's actually his dad, ladies and gentlemen, Jake Enz, who is pretty much without a fail always in the Pit Road Productions chat, so we'd like to give him a shout out as well. But if you wondered what that was, it's actually to do with knives, ladies and gentlemen. So certainly I didn't know there was a whole avenue about knives, ladies and gentlemen, but good to know. Certainly, you know, had a little bit of an eye-opener there. But one thing I have just noticed, ladies and gentlemen, he is back and in form, ladies and gentlemen. Thomas Nieminen, our favourite Finland driver, has indeed not just taken it to P1 in class, but P1 overall. As I say that, Rupesh Pineni stakes it away.
Yeah, it looks like every time we try to give a driver their dues, the success gets stolen from them immediately. That's a great lap by Rupesh Pineni. 103.2 is the fastest time, and that is a 100th of a second quicker than what Rupesh was able to manage in practice. Felipe Puls was the quickest driver in practice on a 103.1, but we haven't seen anyone jump into that particular margin yet in qualifying. Still got 6 minutes on clock, plenty of time to get some extra pace on for these laps. This being a Roval circuit, you do have a great slipstreaming opportunity when you get onto the oval section, but the big challenge is staying close enough through this infield. No elevation change to speak of. It's completely flat, this infield section, but it's incredibly technical, and I think some good curb usage is going to be the secret to a good lap here.
Yeah, certainly. I'm going to trust your word on that even more than mine, Reece. And actually, if any word I was going to trust, it'd probably be one of the head coaches here at the Almeida Racing Academy. That's going to be Kane Halliburton, ladies and gentlemen. He's the guy who... well, ladies and gentlemen, he's 8,049 iRate, and if he says that's a better line, I'm going to 100% agree with that, man. Indeed, it looks like we've got Connor Bell present today as well, but certainly I think one of the things that I find that with maybe the best education, at least from my perspective here, that the students are going to get is, I think, trying to figure out where you are geographically on the track. Like, as we, let's go on board here with Felipe Puls, is as you was describing earlier, it's such a wide track. Like, how do you try and figure out the position and find the apex here? There's the cone, that definitely helps, but I have a feeling this is going to be a really good training opportunity for these guys. And certainly we do have a couple of people here in Swelio's chat saying Almeida has his own racing league. Yes, sir, he does. And if you want to be part of it, you have to join the academy. Ladies and gentlemen, why wouldn't you do it? You can spend all the money you want on gear, but then you can be one of them people who, you know, you got all the toys and you can't really work. And that would be me, ladies and gentlemen. I've got some really nice sim gear, and I can't compete with any of these guys. It's fair to say they are all quicker than me. Rich Meester's being probably one of the best examples I've seen in my own experience of the Almeida Racing Academy. And speaking of which, he's currently there in P21, so certainly going to wish him the best of luck. But I do remember when this gentleman was indeed, he was about, oh my gosh, he was about 1400 IR on a good day. I've actually got a bit of a shock. Reese, he's now 3217 I rating. He has been a busy boy indeed.
Yeah, he's more than doubled his I rating from the last time you checked. That's quite the significant improvement for Rich Meesters, and that is one of the things that the Academy can benefit you in. All of the drivers in this server, bar Kane Halliburton and Connor Bell, who will be starting at the back, they're coaches, but everyone else are students at the Almeida Racing Academy. You pay a monthly fee, and you will get access to all of Suelio Almeida and Friends' coaching material to help you get better at driving, at racing, not just in the sim world, but in the real world as well. Make sure to check out the Academy if you haven't already. It's a real pleasure for us to help to bring all of this to the world here on Pit Road Productions. And one of the drivers that we've seen some major improvements from over the course of the time we've been broadcasting this series is Kevin Adrian, who's it looks like doing some draft swapping with Ian Joyner there in the number 18, who has just gone P1. The pole position time is now down to a 1:03.0.
That is incredibly quick, Reese. And certainly, you know what, Kevin Adrian, he's playing this pretty strategically. Don't get me wrong, I don't think he was able to get Ian Joyner ahead of him at exactly the right moment. So I don't know if this is going to be one of his battle laps, but certainly if he can stay behind Joyner, if he has enough time, this could be a way to absolutely slingshot himself up through the standings. And honestly, the Spec Racer Ford, I have sung the praises of this car for such a long time, and it was great to see the Academy just going, yeah, actually, that's really good. And they didn't just do it for one season, ladies and gentlemen, they did it for two. We are in the second season of the Spec Racer Ford. It is a new time, ladies and gentlemen. It's a new time, and it's a good time to be in sim racing, ladies and gentlemen. And certainly, one of the things that I think could pop up is an interesting discussion point for you, Reese, here. Is obviously with the crisis going on for RAM and memory right now, getting into iRacing if you don't already have a PC is actually going to be quite a heavier cost of entry now. But you know what's really good about the Almeida Academy? Is the lessons. They don't just apply to iRacing. Ladies and gentlemen, we have real race drivers part of this academy who develop and improve, ladies and gentlemen. Not only that, if you're on a different sim, Gran Turismo, you know, if you're on that, that's fine. The same principles apply. Ladies and gentlemen, it is racing, and it's a transferable skill between sims.
Yeah, absolutely is. There's, you know, there's you could have you could fill an entire library with all of the forum arguments over the years of which sim has the better physics, but the fact of the matter is the same driving principles still apply across every sim. You know, there are those subtle differences between them. You know, we're all well familiar with that, but as you said, it is a transferable skill, and you know, I think any driver who engages with the Academy material will be able to make some big improvements in their driving, no matter what sim is their favorite. Well, we have just under a minute to go in qualifying, and with lap times of just over a minute, I think everyone crossing the line from this point on is done with their qualifying session. Still waiting to see any improvements from anyone in the last few seconds, just half a minute remaining. Seeing a green sector from Carlos Facania. It's good to see the Brazilian back. We missed him for a round or two. Up to P21. Nice improvement there for car number 181. Just getting his final lap in time. And Rich Meesters making an improvement of one position, switches places with Stephen Saunders for position number 23. And looks like with 5 seconds remaining, that's going to be it. It's a multi-race server, which means the drivers will disappear off your screen right now. Give it a couple of seconds. Hang on a minute.
Well,
hang on a minute.
The hand of God, Mr. Reese Gardner, does appear to be faulty on this occasion.
Hang on a moment. Okay, so double checking the schedule in sim, we've actually got a single hour race that's happening here. It's not a 15-minute sprint followed by a 40-minute feature. It is a single 1-hour race, and so that means drivers can finish their laps after the timer runs out.
Yeah, this could be interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly we're going to see an interesting dynamic here in a 1-hour race. Definitely a little bit of a surprise for this broadcast, but you know what? That is okay, ladies and gentlemen. That just gives me more time to have a little bit of a cup of tea while I work away here in the booth. But I got to say, thinking about the 1-hour race, certainly when you get the 15 and the 40, you do get almost a second chance at redemption, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly a few drivers very much would be looking to capitalize on that. Myself, yeah, I would very much be okay with that too, but 1 hour, there is no forgiveness, ladies and gentlemen. I do have to wonder if they do have that one fast repair available, but certainly they're going to have to think about this, you know, really, really smart, because obviously you got to think about these cars. They're not going to last the hour, I don't think, on the fuel they've got. They do usually get a pit stop, so are we going to see some drivers fighting out for the lead, or are we going to see some interesting variations here in pit strategy? But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be here for the ride. You are watching Pit Road Productions, and indeed, Swallow Almeida's channel.
Yeah, you are indeed. I think there's going to be a lot of potential for fuel saving, actually, considering the long, flat-out oval section and the gentle run into turn one. We might be seeing a lot of lifting and coasting, but we have to see which order the drivers are starting in first before we think about any of that. Well, reigning series champion Ian Joyner will start alongside Rupesh Pineni on the front row of the grid. Mason Kuhn is alongside Thomas Nieminen, who takes the club class pole. Adrian Hopp and Felipe Puls will be 5th and 6th. Kevin Lau, our debutant, starting alongside Jose Gustavo. And then it's Zoltan Zomator and Cairo Enns rounding out your top 10.
As we have a look there at P11, that's going to be Philip Marvin alongside Michael Hooper. Heading back to 13th, we got Bas van der Lee with Philip Falcon alongside him 14th. Tyler Harker, the most Harlequin paint we've seen here on Pit Road Productions. He's there in 15th with Kevin Adrian. You saw him on camera just a few moments ago. The Canadian legend himself. He's there in 16th with Dominic Sayu, his return Almeida Academy top split, ladies and gentlemen. He's there in 17th with Tuca Valcaseo in 18th, Anthony Gori 19th, and then Carlton Howard closing out your top 20.
The Brazilian Carlos Facania will start in 21st place alongside Valdas Vansevicius, with Rich Meesters and Stephen Saunders on row number 12. Kemel Kassim and Jeffrey Adkins, 2 Americans, sharing row number 13. Then Philippe Masson, the Frenchman, alongside Chris Gengaro for 27th and 28th. The last student is James Conrad in 29th place. Kane Halliburton and Connor Bell are our resident coaches, and they will be starting at the back to see how far up they get. Will we see Halliburton or Bell take victory today is the big question, or will Joyner be able to give them the race of their lives here at Phoenix International Raceway? Really love this track. It's seen a lot of usage, particularly in the dirt road scene here on iRacing, a fictional rallycross layout created when the rallycross cars were added to the sim. But we are not driving on that layout today. We're doing the full road course that, once again, the tarmac is technically still there on the infield of the oval today, but it is impossible to race this layout now with the reconfigurations of the Phoenix Oval in 2011 and 2019, I believe. Yeah, basically there was no real way in or out of the infield in a racing sense. So this is a real blast from the past here.
Yeah, certainly, and I gotta say, look at the stands, ladies and gentlemen. The crowd has come out in the masses. Honestly, this would be more interesting to watch than Formula One. I'd put money on that. And not just a biased opinion, if you want to see more passes, you're going to see it here, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be more passes, more strategy, and definitely a lot more attainable budget, ladies and gentlemen. That I can promise you for sure. But certainly it's good to see we've got some new people here in the chat. And Reese, I do have an update. It is indeed going to be the 1-hour endurance, and there is no fast repairs available, and there is going to be a mandatory pit stop as well. So certainly we are looking forward to that, ladies and gentlemen. And I should probably write myself a note for that as well, so we can make sure that we get that sorted for the next endurance round, which I remember rightly, I think it's Barcelona.
It is indeed the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, which is going to be another very interesting track to see an endurance race at. Ridiculously long front straight on that circuit and plenty of flowing corners. It's almost the antithesis to this place, which, I mean, you can see the tarmac is so worn and degraded, and there's so many bumps, especially on the infield, that we saw demonstrated in qualifying. Well, we're getting ready for the start. And Ian Joyner has quite a race ahead of him here. He won't have anyone ahead of him into turn 1, but everyone behind him will be wanting to take that position. He's going to have to use everything he's learned to keep this lead as the pace car gets ready to pull into pit lane. Round 3 of Season 6 of the Almeida Racing League here at Phoenix 2008 Road Course. So good to see this track making an appearance here in such a great league as the green flag flies, and Ian Joyner has skipped away from everyone already. Threat for second, Mason Kuhn making his way past Rupesh Pineni through turn 1, but now turn 2 beckons. Cold tyres, cold brakes. It'll be very easy to get some understeer through this corner, and already seeing a few drivers further back starting to experience that. Some brief trades of position between Kevin Lau and Cairo Enns, Kevin Adrian and Bas van der Lee for 14th and 15th, and Stephen Saunders is right there with the 25th place car of Connor Bell, who's managed to make his way past him. 2 wide, 3 deep just about through turn 7. And Kane Halliburton will be trying his best to chase Connor Bell, and they'll be working together as best they can to make their way through this field. Down to the hairpin, not seeing any big crashes, so it looks like it's been a clean start for just about everybody, but nothing wrong with a tiny bit of contact, as we just saw.
Yeah, definitely nothing wrong with having a little bit of exploration, potentially, of not just the track limits, but indeed the limits of the car, ladies and gentlemen. But right now, Ian Joyner leading by about 0.4 of a second. Indeed, these guys want to make sure that they stay together, ladies and gentlemen. If you lose the draft in this car, it could be very, very expensive indeed. But let's have a look a little bit further back here as Kevin Lau is getting into it here with Cairo Enns. Now, Lau is going to be one of the Premier Class drivers, ladies and gentlemen. He's currently in P6 or P9 overall. Cairo Enns 3rd in the amateur class, so he's definitely going to want to keep pushing indeed. You can see the gap ahead of him now expanding to about 0.6 of a second. He's going to want to make sure he can indeed stay behind the number 51 of Adrian Hopp.
Yeah, Adrian Hopp down 2 places. Jose Gustavo ahead of him up 2 places. And it's the same for Cairo Enns. 2 positions gained in the opening laps. Our hardest charger at the moment is Connor Bell. But if you take the coaches out, the hard charger award belongs to Valdas Vancevicius in P14. He has gained 8 positions thus far. A lightning start from the 119 from Lithuania.
Well, you say that is if we look for a different variety, or at least a different driver of that paint. Something has happened with Carlton Howard. Let's take a quick replay on board and find out exactly what went on, as that's Kevin Adrian there carrying some damage as well.
Yeah, okay, so bit of a slow-mo replay here. And we'll see Carlton Howard draw alongside Kevin Adrian on the way to the hairpin. It looks to me like he might have gone a bit too deep. Yeah, way too wide at the hairpin, and goes straight into the tire bundles there to bring you back onto the oval. You've got to be very careful there. There's no clear braking marker for that hairpin. It's very easy to overshoot.
Yeah, definitely a little bit unfortunate there for Carlton Howard, but let's have a look further up through the field, ladies and gentlemen, because in P5 and P6, ladies and gentlemen, we have a couple of our Brazilian drivers. Now, if you didn't know, Swilio Almeida himself is actually there from Brazil as well, so that's absolutely fantastic stuff. Certainly, one thing we don't see too often, I mean, we do see it a little bit in at times, more the Canadian drivers, I find, is camaraderie between fellow countrymen, but right now, Ian Joyner, he's going to be all on his own. I say that at least... what's the word I'm looking for? At least patriotically speaking. Let's go with that, ladies and gentlemen. As Mason Kuhn, the American driver, looking to try and make a move up on the inside. Now, Mason currently leading, ladies and gentlemen, the Premier classes. Ian Joyner running interestingly wide there. And Rupesh Pineni goes, you know what? I have some of that as well. Thomas Nieminen with a front row seat. This could be a good opportunity for him to get involved in the mix.
Yeah, that's a rare error from Ian Joyner. I mean, he did see Kuhn coming up alongside him and left him room, but maybe went a bit too deep into turn 2. And so now finds himself in 3rd on board with Thomas Nieminen as he chases our top 3 through turn 9. And having a tiny little look, you see where they're getting on the brakes. I think this is a track where you drive more by feel than at just about any other circuit on the calendar, because, you know, I've driven at just about every circuit that this calendar features, and they all have clear braking markers for all their corners, except for this place. You're literally just sensing. Practice is key, and Adrian Hopp has nailed the exit of the final corner there. Going to move up the inside of Kevin Lau into turn 1. No, he's not. Lau is going to fire into the corner around the outside.
Well, these guys are definitely having a good battle, but strategically they want to try and find their way forward. But I gotta say, I do love to recognize what an artistic paint we have on the number 51. Like, there is a lot going on, ladies and gentlemen. But not only that, he's rocking the Almeida logos as well. It's actually really tastefully done. So credit where due, ladies and gentlemen. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, we got some really good liveries that are appearing in this league now. It used to be that, oh dear, looks like some server issues potentially. We have seen in previous seasons, back when they were running a sort of teams format in this league, that pretty much everyone was running the default Almeida schemes in different colors. But in the last couple of seasons, we've seen a lot of fantastic designs coming out on these cars. It took us a couple of rounds to see Cairo Enz's livery in full force, but I'm very happy that we can see it on the broadcast now. Jose Gustavo, meanwhile, fighting hard with Felipe Puls. As we can see, not much camaraderie between these two Brazilians, and the Canadian of Cairo Enz is right behind them. Look at that! That CCE is spec mapped, it looks like. That's quite impressive.
Oh, not only that, he's got the Pit Road Productions logo on the front bumper, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, a lot of these cars actually rocking Pit Road Productions logos, for which I thank you very much indeed. But ladies and gentlemen, absolutely fantastic stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go then. Felipe Puls versus Jose Gustavo. We will need to see how it works out between these two. They're not afraid to get their elbows out, and it's lost them both a bit of time. There's a bit more of a gap now to Nieminen and everyone else ahead of him in the top 4. Cairo Enz, Kevin Lau, and Adrian Hopp will find their way closer to the two Brazilians as Puls will find the slipstream down the front straight. We do apologize for those couple of glitches, evidently some network issues, server issues, not entirely sure what's going on for this, but I'm sure that we'll be getting things back in order very soon. For the moment, 53 minutes remaining in the race, and Mason Kuhn still leads from Rupesh Pineni by about 0.4 of a second. Just in time for us to come back, Cairo Enz locks up and runs wide.
Yeah, definitely a little bit unfortunate there for Cairo Enz. Thankfully able to keep the car on the track. It does look like he's got a little bit of damage, though, on the left front of that car. Indeed he has. And in a 1-hour endurance race, that is absolutely the worst thing possible. He's going to be compromised, not just for fuel, but for outright speed, ladies and gentlemen. Now Adrian Hopp here is going to get an opportunity to make a pass.
Yeah, looks like Cairo's straight line speed is definitely hurting at the moment, and don't forget there are no fast repairs, so when Cairo comes into the pits, if he wants to get that damage repaired, and he may well want to if his pace suffers, he will be stuck there for quite some time while the mechanics repair the car. So we'll see what he can do to stay in the slipstream of Kevin Lau, see if he can keep Adrian Hopp behind him. It's nose to tail for all three of these drivers through turn 2, but looks like Kevin Lau is making some great gains under acceleration.
Yeah, and certainly if he can catch up to the back of Felipe Puls, he's just about out of the draft range. And indeed, this is a battle, ladies and gentlemen, for P1 all the way down to P6. And certainly if Kevin Lau can catch up to that, we're going to get an even bigger battle indeed, ladies and gentlemen, because all the way back to P12 is that lead pack, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly, there's only one gap that was about a second, and even then, Kevin Lau's just managed to pull in about 0.2 of a second on that, indeed. So this could get even closer still.
All right, well, it looks to me like now we have almost the entirety of the top 12 covered by less than a second between each car, but Kevin Lau is trying his best to bring the gap to Felipe Puls back down, and it looks like Cairo Enz isn't going to be giving him too much trouble there. Back to Kevin Adrian. Last time we saw him, he had gathered some damage, and it looks like he's trying his best to find his way a little bit further forward. He's in 18th at the moment. Domenico Sayu is the driver behind, and it looks like they're on their own at the moment. Got about 5.8 seconds or so to the next two cars ahead, which happen to be our coaches coaches, Halliburton and Bell.
Yeah, certainly good luck catching up to the Almeida Academy coaches, but certainly these two guys, if they can work together, that could be the only way to move forward. But the situation that Kevin Adrian is in right now, where he's got such heavy damage on the front, it's going to lower his fuel efficiency, it's going to lower his speed, but realistically, he needs to make sure he can get far enough into the race that he can indeed make the pit and try and do a single stop. Otherwise, doesn't matter how he looks at it, he's going to be a two-stop strategy. Certainly a little bit unfortunate there, but can he nurse it and show his... Oh dear.
Okay, well, that's going to require some nursing now. He was wide through the hairpin, got on the power, and the rear end of the car just wasn't cooperating. So that's going to be Meesters, Valkyasuo, Kasim, Masson, and Saunders finding their way past Kevin Adrian as a result. But looks like we'll be seeing Philip Falcon as well join the party here. Another very nice livery here. Got a bit of a synthwave vibe to it, but he's not going to be worrying about how his car looks here. He's going to be worrying about where to place it, and it looks like Kevin Adrian has blocked off his approach into turn 2 there. Philip Falcon probably doing the smart thing and just backing off. It's, I think, a wise decision at this stage of the race. We still have a very long way to go.
Yeah, certainly do. It's about 50 minutes left to go, ladies and gentlemen, in this 1-hour endurance round. Going to be an absolute belter. Right now, though, Colin Howard, the only driver who's showing us a lap down. James Conrad, I do not believe, took to the start. Certainly correct me if I'm wrong. But if we have a quick look here, back at the lead pack, ladies and gentlemen, Mason Kuhn is leading that. The 5,134 iRating driver currently has a 25.63 right behind him. Fair play to Rupesh Panani. He is surrounded by 5K plus, 4K plus drivers, and despite that, is currently riding in P2 overall.
Yeah, it's been a consistent drive from Rupesh so far. He's managed to keep Ian Joyner behind, but I get the feeling that Joyner's just biding his time here. He is obviously the fastest driver of them all, having started on pole position, but in a race like this, probably a better idea to have a couple of cars in front of you just to slipstream off to sort of judge your pace a little bit better and be able to make moves later on. Felipe Puls and Jose Gustavo have managed to catch up to these guys. They are joined by Niemanen and Kevin Lau. This entire train of cars stretches all the way back to Michael Hooper in P12.
Absolutely fantastic stuff, and he is just about holding on to the draft as well, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly, I'm loving the fact we have the it's not a multi-car class racing, ladies and gentlemen, multi-class within like your own skill set, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly, that does. I mean, it makes it up for the majority. It's pretty balanced, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly, a couple of these AM drivers. Certainly, Felipe Puls there. He's P5 overall. Thomas Niemanen, P6 overall. Cairo ends P8 overall. It just goes to show that these students have indeed been developing from the qualifying sessions at the very start of the season.
Yeah, for sure. It's always good to see a nice balance between Premier and Club or Pro and Club, whatever you call them in various leagues. Looks like I'm starting to have some issues of my own, which is certainly not ideal.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be one of them days. It's indeed Cairo Renz maybe potentially having one of those days. Well, we got to say our thanks there to the Australian internet service. But indeed, let's take a quick check in with our coaches, ladies and gentlemen, as Kane Halliburton and Connor Bell, both of these drivers up 16 positions respectively. And I've got to say, they're absolutely going for it, ladies and gentlemen. On lap time, it doesn't look that amazing right now, but keep in mind they're dealing with traffic. It is indeed going to slow them down. But certainly Connor Bell, his NASCAR Canada debut, he got a penalty and still won the entire race, ladies and gentlemen. Currently serving a little bit of damage on the left front of that Spec Racer Ford. It's a beautiful car, but is it going to be enough for him to try and slingshot his way up to the front of the grid?
Yeah, as you mentioned, damage on the front end of Connor's car. I do apologize for that little upset. It appears my internet connection decided to throw its dummy out of the pram, so to speak. It's not an uncommon occurrence. Kevin Lau, meanwhile, seems to have something going on behind him here. Cairo Enns trying to keep Adrian Hop behind. On board with Lau, and it looks like Enns is going to go for it at the hairpin, and Hop's going to try and follow him through here, but Lau on the outside, going to go for the over-under on Enns, but it looks like Adrian Hop is going to be the main beneficiary of all of this. He just gained 2 for 1, and Tyler Harker's going to try and follow him.
Yeah, definitely. It's fair to say there's a little bit of buy one, get one free action. Certainly Kevin Lau did not consent to that sale, ladies and gentlemen, as indeed he's managed to recover one back from Cairo. Looking to try and get another one back from Tyler Harker. He's going to be there on the inside. Just about gets the nose ahead, at least for now. But I've got to say, Adrian Hop absolutely capitalized on that. As what a send there from Cairo ends, and he's got it away with it as well. What a move.
Lovely stuff, and that completely caught Kevin Lau out. He lost all of his pace at the apex of turn 2, and that's just pushed everyone further back. Another view of the send, 1 position, 2 positions, my goodness gracious, to the apex, and a little bit of a bump there, putting Kevin Lau by the wayside. So very nicely judged move there from Cairo, but can he keep that pace up? Remember, he's still carrying damage on that car, and if he doesn't have someone to slipstream off, his straight line speed might suffer.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, like, he definitely got it ahead, parked it on the apex, but you know what, that was the best move I've seen so far of the race, and indeed, I'm happy for the guy. Like, this is why I do this stuff, ladies and gentlemen. I enjoy good racing. Indeed, I've got a feeling we're about to get a little bit more here. Thomas Niemann is going to be in the back of this pack. You can see the 2 Brazilian drivers fighting ahead of him. Managed to make a move on the inside of the number 15. That's Dominic Gustavo. Is he going to be able to make it pay off? Indeed, he has, as he makes his way around turn 1. You can see right behind, Adrian Hop starts to think about it as well.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's the second time we've seen an incredible move at turn 2, and you know, we're only about a quarter of the way into this race. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of those. This is fantastic racing. Let's do more races at this circuit. It's a fantastic layout. I think one of the most underrated circuits on iRacing for my money.
Well, certainly, if it's going to deliver racing action like this, I'm very much here for it, ladies and gentlemen. As indeed, Mason Kuhn is still leading this pack. And I got to say, I have a feeling that's going to bite him in the long run, ladies and gentlemen. He is breaking a nice punch of fire through the circuit for the drivers behind him of Rupesh Panani, Ian Joyner, and indeed, Felipe Paul's just about holding onto that draft as well. Indeed, currently the top 12 are all under a second of each other, ladies and gentlemen. But here's the punchline. 4.7 seconds back is Kane Halliburton, and indeed 1.4 seconds back from him is Connor Bell. How long do you reckon it's going to take for these guys to make it to the front of the pack?
Well, let's compare lap times. So Bell and Halliburton both ran mid-103s. They were able to make their way past the second half of the field pretty quickly because most of the drivers down the order are running like high 103s to mid-104s, as I've just noticed Domenico Sayu has fallen down the order. I think something's happened to him. Meanwhile, everyone ahead of Halliburton and Bell, they're running times that are pretty consistent with the coaches. Their job is going to be a lot harder from here on out. They're only gaining about a 10th or so a lap at best.
Yeah, certainly. I have a feeling if Kane Halliburton can find a car to slipstream onto, that could be some very, very good news indeed. But it looks like something happened to Chris Gangario as well. I wonder if this had something to do with Dominic Sayu as well.
So over the curbs. Does he collect too much of the curb? Oh, yeah. Looks like he does. That looked like a very lazy spin there. Yeah, it does save it, but that's one of those spins that when it happens, I think you don't even really know that it's happening, so to speak. I mean, at least from the outside, the car looked okay. And Tuukka Valkeasuo getting a bit of a lucky escape there. Looked like contact between Rich Meesters and Domenico Sayu. That's the reason why we saw Domenico running down the order. So, and I think probably the most inconvenient place for that to happen, too, coming out of the final couple of corners. Meanwhile, Stephen Saunders coming into the hairpin, collects the curb, that unsettles the car. Yeah, you don't really want to touch the curbs for the most part at this track. That is bad. Unfortunately, Jeffrey Adkins getting into Stephen Saunders, and heavy damage for the both of them.
Yeah, definitely a little bit unfortunate there. Certainly, Kane Halliburton has not yet been able to make his way ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, no criticism on him. That's 100%. If you have draft, even if you're the lead car, it does kind of help you push ahead, ladies and gentlemen. But certainly, Jake Enns there showing a little bit of affection there for turn 2, saying it is the bomb. As Rupesh Panani looking like he's trying to think about making a move there as well. Ian Joyner potentially as well.
Yes, I think... oh, hello. That's interesting. Felipe Pauls, I think, might have either caught the curb or the back of Joyner's car because he did a little wheelie. We've seen a couple of incidents like that this season. where the Spec Racer Ford has hit a bump or another car in just the right way to send the front end off the ground. I think they'll have to be careful at the apexes of these corners, because once again, those curbs are for the most part quite raised. You want to be very careful of that. Kevin Lau, meanwhile, way too deep at turn 2. That's a lock-up. He almost ends up taking the oval.
Yeah, definitely, don't get me wrong, he's going through the oval circuit. Might not have been the worst line, but you know what that does mean, ladies and gentlemen? That means it's now even closer. 3.7 seconds for Halliburton to catch up to the back of another car. Should he do that, he will indeed be able to catch the rest of this pack, ladies and gentlemen. But right now, let's return to the action. It looks like Jose Gustavo and Adrian Hopper now going to be going side by side yet again, with Cairo Enns right behind him.
Oh, yes. And Adrian Hopp will get the move done. Cairo Enns is going to follow him. And Jose Gustavo has no choice but to let them go. It's turn 2 is one of those corners where you want to turn in. You really need to try and get to the apex. But if there's a car up your inside, then there's not much you can do to arrest their momentum. You just have to let them go and maybe fight another lap. That's what Jose Gustavo is going to be thinking about. Tyler Harker then keeping himself well ahead of Michael Hooper. Zomotor and Lau now round out your top 12, and both of them are drivers that have lost a few positions over the course of this race. Down 2 for Zomotor and down 5 for Lau, so doesn't look like we're going to be seeing much improvement from them in the short term. Don't forget though, 20 minutes of this race complete, 40 to go. We still have a pit stop coming. The question is when.
Yeah, certainly, and I have a feeling that these two drivers should potentially work together. That's Michael Hooper and indeed Zoltan Zomotor, the two German drivers there. Generally, from my experience at the Spec Racer Ford, it is quicker to basically try and leapfrog each other to try and push yourselves ahead. Bump drafting does kind of work, certainly. If Sammy Hendricks was here, he would definitely be doing that, and to which case we would salute him, ladies and gentlemen. We do love a good bump draft, but currently the gap there to the back of that lead pack is about 1.2 seconds ahead. Kevin Lau, we know, has got more pace under the hood of that car, but can he go and capitalize on that with these two drivers ahead to try and catch up to the lead pack? Currently being tailed by Tyler Harker.
Yeah, Harker has gained 6 positions over the course of the race so far. Late apex for the hairpin. That'll give him a nice launch and help him stay in the slipstream of the number 15 of Jose Gustavo. Cairo Enns just ahead. Those two are going to start fighting here coming into turns 1 and 2, I reckon. And Harker would do well to place himself in a spot where he can take advantage. He might be a bit too far behind, though, to make any real use of it. So Gustavo moving past Enns into turn 1. Very aggressive entry there for Harker. And he draws a little bit closer, but nothing doing for the moment. I think it's all just a waiting game until you can do that move. Oh, dear. Enns almost stopped at the apex of turn 2. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, let's take a quick replay of that and see exactly what just went on.
Yeah, so the pass made for Jose Gustavo was nice and clean. There was nothing wrong with that. Cairo Enns then trying to focus on getting back online and be able to stay in touch with the number 15. And then into turn 2, he tries to come back on him, and unfortunately, he was a little bit of a passenger at that point. The Spec Racer Ford, quite the oversteery car, as you are well aware, Zippy.
Yeah, it definitely has its moments. It looks like something happened to Michael Hooper as well. He's now fallen back here. He was up there in P8, P9 with Zoltan Zomotor. But ladies and gentlemen, look out. It's a resident Almeida Academy house robot. Indeed, Kane Halliburton is going to be back in the mix.
Oh, he is. His last couple of laps have been, wow. I mean, it just goes to show the kind of racing that we've seen for those positions just outside the top 10. 104.6, 105.7, 106.9 for Lau, Cooper and Harker. Kane Halliburton, 103.2. That's nearly 2 seconds gained at least on Hooper. So, my goodness, it looks like Halliburton's only just getting started here.
Yep, no, I've got a feeling we're about to see a couple of position changes, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to involve the number 12 car moving forward. That beautiful gold-plated Spec Racer Ford. Ladies and gentlemen, it's purely cosmetic. It is not actually gold-plated, but certainly you see a little bit of a lock-up there from Kevin Lau, and that's an easy move there for Kane Halliburton. As I say that, Lau is going to be right behind the Almeida Academy coach, and look at the background as well. Connor Bell has managed to gain 4 tenths per second in the melee that is happening ahead of him. Could we see potentially both coaches make their way up towards the front of the pack here? There's still a long way to go, but ladies and gentlemen, with 35 minutes, a lot still to happen.
Yes, indeed. Still haven't seen anyone come into the pits for a scheduled stop, or for the mandatory stop, so to speak. Half a move there from Kane Halliburton, but Tyler Harker will stay ahead. I do see Chris Gengaro has made his way into pit lane, but I'm not sure if that's for damage. We'll have to wait and see what his stop time ultimately is. The car looks all right, actually, so this might be the first of our mandatory pit stops being taken. Back to Halliburton, though, and, well, he's looking at last position in the top 10. Tyler Harker a little bit wider out of turn 8, which does give him a slightly better run down the short straight to the hairpin, but Halliburton is... Oh, he's going to have a bit of a freebie there. Harker a little bit loose through the hairpin.
Yeah, certainly it was getting asked by Jay Kenzie, you know, are the tyres going to be able to last that long? And I'm going to say, yeah, they should do. Certainly my experience with Spec Racer Ford, generally you can get an air out the tyres pretty comfortably. Don't get me wrong, you will start to feel them wear off a little bit nearer the end, but these drivers are pushing much harder than certainly I can. Indeed, Connor Bell now involved in this pack as well. Michael Hooper just ahead by about 0.3 per second. He's been waiting for the draft. Another driver getting into the mix here as well is Bas van der Lee with Valdis van Servicius.
Yeah, Valdas still one of the most gainful students on the circuit here today. 7 positions up still, which is quite the impressive run. We'll have to wait and see what he can do to hold off Van der Lee, because Bas is trying his best to regain the 3 positions that he's lost so far in this race. Kevin Adrian, meanwhile, slightly different real-world camera angle for him that you see in the bottom right corner. Initially, it was placed right behind his wheel, and we were almost staring up his nostrils, but now we get a more conventional view of the Canadian as he muscles his way around this infield. The damaged car ahead of him is going to cause maybe a little drama. That's Philip Falcon ahead, who's been struggling a bit for pace and consistency in this round. Carlos Facania up ahead, so is Tuka Valkiasuo and Rich Meesters leading the way here. A proper draft train for everyone from 18th on back.
Certainly a lot left to play for here for this Canadian driver. It's great to see him here. He's it's not his highest performance race. We'll phrase it like that, ladies and gentlemen. But certainly, I would love to see if we can get a rain race here in the academy, because my money would 100% be on this guy. He is incredible in the rain. Potentially a good learning lesson as well for the students. But let's go and check in back at the front pack, ladies and gentlemen. Currently going from first all the way down to about P7. Let's say P6 later. P5, ladies and gentlemen. P5, P6. There we go. P6
yes.
with about 1.5 second gap to Jose Gustavo, who's currently leading another pack in 7th.
Yeah, looks like everyone's splitting off into their various battle packs now. And speaking of Jose Gustavo, he's still got Cairo Enns filling his mirrors. And for the moment, trying to find his line into turn 1. Does Enns see an opportunity at turn 2? Maybe not quite, but look a little bit further behind them. The yellow car is Zoltan Zomator. It looks like he was a little bit quicker to the apex than either of our 2 main protagonists in this fight.
Yeah, I actually have a feeling there that Cairo Enns is getting a little bit too flirtatious with the limits of grip on the way through that corner. You can see he's been a couple of times where he's caught a slide. That's what happened to Tyler Harker. Caught the slide, but ended up having a little bit of contact there. But I have a feeling that those tyres are indeed running a little bit warm. I think Jake Enns could be on something here, and it may be worth dialing it back a little bit in terms of the long race strategy, because if that thing slips out and goes, I got a feeling he's maybe not going to be lucky twice.
Yeah, the Spec Racer Ford, of course, is not on the very latest version of the iRacing tyre model, but it still needs quite a bit of management to get its performance consistently over a stint. Bump draft from Cairo Enns, as it looks like we have another driver coming in for a scheduled stop. Zoltan Zomator is jumping into the pit lane. Now, Chris Gengaro was the first driver to come in for the mandatory stop, and his time in the box was 22.5 seconds. That's the benchmark that we'll now be judging everyone else against. If Zomator is faster through the lane, then we know that our front runners will likely be even quicker still.
Yeah, certainly if you can get a good draft going, it would be very, very beneficial. And that's one of the gentlemen here who's going to be thinking about that. It's the number 18 driver of Mr. Ian Joyner. Looked like he went a little bit of a twitch there going through that left-hander, ladies and gentlemen. But right now, Thomas Niemann and right behind him, and Felipe Pauls, he's currently leading the M class in this race and P3 overall. Up 3 positions on the day. But ladies and gentlemen, have a quick look here. Kane Halliburton up 21 positions. I have a feeling that Connor Bell's going to be matching that number very shortly, as you can see Tyler Harker just ahead of him.
Yeah, and Connor Bell, the fastest car on track last time by, a 103.158, which isn't far off the overall fastest lap of the race that Connor Bell also holds, about 0.03 of a second slower. So just goes to show the front end of Bell's car might be carrying some cosmetic damage, but it's certainly not hurting his pace. Bit of oversteer on the way into turn 2 for Connor Bell. And he is maximizing the track, even going beyond it in places. This track, I find, is pretty lenient when it comes to running over the white line. So if you're allowed to use it, you better take it.
Certainly, that's probably one of the biggest things from racing. Certainly, I'm sure you'll know who it was. There was a guy who did NASCAR, and he was all about trying to beat the rule book, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly, I'm not saying that's what Connor Bell's doing, but in racing, if you're within the rules, you can really flirt with it as pretty much as you want, ladies and gentlemen. Like the off-track limits, if you can push 3/4 of the car over, you need to push 3/4 of the car over to get the optimal line and indeed get the best exit speed you possibly can. And right now, Connor Bell, very much in the draft of Tyler Harker, the 171 student, is going to be under attack very, very shortly.
Indeed he is. So as Bell draws up behind Tyler Harker, doesn't see an opportunity. Harker's going a little defensive there. Usually the optimum line is running just to the right of those pit box markings on the left side on the way into turn 2, but it seems like Harker is well aware that Bell is here and he is ready to make moves. Thinking about pit stops just briefly, Zoltan Zomator, his stop was 22.9 seconds, so he had a slower stop than Chris Gengaro, but he was quicker through the lane by about 0.8 of a second.
Yeah, definitely very interesting. But saying that, something has happened with Rich
Oh,
Meisters,
no.
and I believe Chris Gengaro was involved in that as well, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a warning for them. Let's have a quick look and see exactly what happened.
Looks like they're in 2 completely separate places on the circuit, so I'm not sure that these are the same incident, probably 2 concurrent ones. Gengaro, on the way into the hairpin, too deep, and, well, he tried to turn in and make the apex while still on the brakes, and that is how you rotate a race car, but in that case he rotated it too much. Rich Meisters, meanwhile, getting ever so close to the wall at turn 1, and the rear end just lets go on him. Great avoiding action by all the drivers coming up on him there. Broadside in the middle of the racetrack, a dangerous position to be in, but I think everyone handled that pretty well.
I got to say, that was an absolutely fantastic demonstration of evasive maneuvers there. But let's have a quick look here, back with the lead back, ladies and gentlemen, as indeed Mason Kuhn is still leading it, ladies and gentlemen. While that is fantastic for him, I've got a feeling he's going to be paying for that down pit road.
Yeah, certainly. He will be using more fuel than the drivers behind him, who have the benefit of just lifting and coasting a little bit and running maybe a little bit off full throttle in the slipstream. That may not necessarily change the amount of fuel you need to take to get to the end, but it will mean likely that Mason Kuhn will have to take his mandatory pit stop a lap or so earlier than everyone else. And I think in a pack like this, you know, I mean, we are technically driving a road course, but I think it's still an oval racing mindset. You stay in the pack, and your pit stop strategy is defined by that as well. You want to be able to pit with people so that you have the slipstream when you come out of the pits. Otherwise, you're just going to bleed lap time.
Absolutely. Not only that, you're going to bleed fuel as well. But let's have a look a bit further back, ladies and gentlemen. As indeed, we've still got this battle going on. Kane Halliburton made his way up 22 positions so far, ladies and gentlemen. Connor Bell only a couple of cars behind him. He's got Cairo Enns in his sights as well. Now, actually, the Cairo Enns did just get a pass on Jose Gustavo shortly ago, to which case Gustavo answered back indeed. But right now, Enns very much under pressure here from the Almeida Academy coach.
All right, Cairo Enns now bookended by our coaches here, as slow on the apron and coming into the lane is Felipe Pauls, who was running second place at one point. Mason Kuhn coming in just ahead of him, and Jose Gustavo jumping in behind. So we're starting to see the first big moves into the pits from drivers at the front.
Yeah, certainly this could get very, very interesting indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, buy one, get one. It's the two academy coaches here present, ladies and gentlemen, both Kane Halliburton and Connor Bell, with Cairo Ends right behind him. Now, this is an absolutely fantastic opportunity here for Cairo. He has literally got the Golden Gate right ahead of him, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't mean San Francisco. I mean the outright pace here of Connor Bell and Halliburton. He can stay in the draft of these guys. This could help him catch up to the rest of the pack. Adrian Hopp about 2 seconds up the road.
Yes, indeed. It's been very interesting to see Cairo Ends' journey. We first encountered him in the Almeida Academy, and he's made appearances in other leagues we broadcast on Pit Road Productions as well. And it's been a difficult road, a long one for him, but he has made some market improvements, which is great to see, and that's another great opportunity for him. That's pit entry demonstrated by Adrian Hopp. You really have to get off the throttle early to even get into pit lane, otherwise you're just understeering on the flat apron of the circuit. There's not much banking to oval 3 and 4 here, but there's enough to make a difference.
Yeah, certainly I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a couple of drivers there pick up black flags for speeding in pit, or indeed they just overshoot completely and end up hitting the pit wall. But right now, Cairo Ends, he's working very, very hard, ladies and gentlemen, trying to catch up to these academy coaches.
So now formation flying once again from Kane Halliburton and Connor Bell. Still two of the fastest cars on the circuit as more pit stops happen. Adrian Hopp, Kevin Lau, Philip Marvin, Philip Falcon, Domenico Sayu, Philippe Masson also jumping into the pit lane on this particular lap. And it looks like the pit stop times are pretty consistent amongst everyone. They're running about 21.5 to 23 seconds in length. And of course that will, oh man, that's pit exit being demonstrated by Hopp there. You exit right onto the racing line on the entry into turn 2. Yeah, the drivers are going to have to be very careful of that going forward, I'm sure.
Well, certainly you say that. Adrian Hopp, for some reason, ladies and gentlemen, he was about 5 seconds slower in the pit box, so I'm not quite sure what he had done through there. Maybe he had a little bit of touch up on that beautiful paintwork, ladies and gentlemen, but that could have been an absolutely monumental cost for him, as indeed the academy coaches have made their way down pit road as well. A matching set as well.
Lovely stuff. It looks like Tyler Harker came in with them. So now we'll see Connor Bell here just wait a few more seconds and he'll be away. Halliburton with a much quicker stop. In fact, the quickest stop we've seen so far, 20.8 seconds that Kane Halliburton managed to get there in pit lane. Connor Bell 22.2, Tyler Harker 22.4. Halliburton has either pulled a strategy masterclass or he's going to run out of fuel.
Both would be entertaining, ladies and gentlemen, to say the very least. As Tuka Vakaseo, he's made his way down pit road as well. It's going to be interesting as well to look at the pit strategy as Rupesh Pranelli makes his way down pit road.
Slowing all the way down to 48 kilometers per hour is the pit speed limit here. I'm not too sure what that is in miles per hour, but it's probably in the mid-20s. We'll be seeing Ian Joyner and Thomas Niemanen join him in there soon. There's only 6 cars out there left to visit pit lane. It's our top 3, and Carlos Facania, Kevin Adrian, and Kemil Kassim in 8th, 9th, and 10th. Now, the question is, Joyner, Niemanen, and Enns, they're evidently content to go an extra lap. That's what Carlos Facania has managed to do there. Looks like potentially a little bit more to come from these front runners. Does this extra time spent out on track benefit them, though, is the question. Joyner has no one ahead of him to slipstream off.
Yeah, certainly Joyner did spend a little bit of time there leading that race, but not as much as Mason Koenig. I'm interested to see how his strategy works out in the long game, but well, I honestly, maybe we have to ask Connor this, indeed, if he pops in a bit later, or maybe Kane, even one of the academy coaches. But certainly, the more I tend to watch these endurance races, the more I tend to see that the undercut seems to be beneficial as Thomas Niemanen and Cairo Ends bring it down pit road. Now, let's keep an eye as well on the front of that car. Maybe we can get a couple of little tweaks done to the front of that to maybe give him a little bit of performance back as well.
Yeah, that will cost him a bit of time in pit lane, though, so it's a difficult situation that Cairo and anyone else with his level of damage in the field has to deal with here. Do you take that damage repair, cost yourself a few seconds of track position, but have a faster car by the end, or do you just leave the car as it is, keep track position, and have to drive around that damage? It doesn't look like much of it is being repaired, if any, but until we get a good look at the front of that car, we won't be able to see much of it. And it looks all right. I'm not entirely sure. We'll find out in just a few moments. Ends his pit stop, 21.9 seconds, and it looks like the damage is mostly still there. So maybe a couple of buff outs, but Cairo Ends re-emerges in P8 behind Felipe Puls and Mason Kuhn. Have a look at that. Connor Bell and Kane Halliburton, they're the effective... No, they're not the effective leaders. Thomas Niemanen has come in, and he only got a stop of 19.5 seconds.
Well, certainly Niemanen has been spending a lot of time in the exhaust fumes of the other drivers, and fair play to him. It looks like it's going to pay off. The AM-class leader, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much the outright leader right now. But saying that, he's got 2.7 seconds behind him to Kane Halliburton. He's got to hold that gap off for 22 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. He is going to be working very, very hard. Now, don't get me wrong, if Halliburton, if Rupesh Pineni, and indeed Connor Bell keep scrapping, it could slow them away from the race leader. But right now, Ian Joyner, currently with that privilege, ladies and gentlemen, as he's still yet to make his way down pit road.
Yeah, now, I understand why Joyner's doing this. He did a lot of fuel saving early on in the race when he fell behind from the lead, and he's taking advantage now with a couple of laps having a lighter car than anybody else, but he is tapping the brakes, he is getting the car slowed down on the apron. Time for the pit stop then. Ian Joyner, the last car to take the mandatory pit stop in this race. Now, the pit lane delta is around about the gap that Joyner has to Kane Halliburton. I think Niemanen is going to retake the lead from here, but can Ian Joyner stay in the podium positions?
We're going to go on board here with Thomas Niemanen and see if he can indeed pull that off. Don't get me wrong, Kane Halliburton, 2.5 seconds behind. He is coming, ladies and gentlemen, and certainly it's going to be a very challenging scenario if he wants to hold on.
All right, well, here comes Niemanen out of the final corner. Joyner's pit stop, starting to reach that magic 20-second mark. Joyner's pit stop
19.
is insanely quick. 19 seconds, and he's going to come out ahead. But Niemanen, hard on the brakes, is going to erase that gap almost immediately. The race is on.
Well, I've got to say, that was an absolutely beautiful strategic play there by the driver of the number 18 car. Absolutely lovely stuff. But is it going to be enough here? Thomas Niemanen about 0.8 of a second behind. And if he can catch up to the back of Joyner, they may be able, between them, hold off the likes of Kane Halliburton and indeed Connor Bell. These two academy coaches going to have to work hard. And not only that, defend from the students behind them. Rupesh Pineni, Mason Kuhn, and Felipe Puls are all going to want a piece of that action. Cairo Ends, he's not quite there with the pack. He's about 1.2 seconds behind. He needs these guys to fight if he wants to stand a chance of catching up.
Okay, we have a very intriguing last 19 minutes of this race, starting right now. Mason Kuhn, meanwhile, has made his way back past Rupesh Pineni, and so our Split 1 championship leader gets back into P5. But have a look at Connor Bell and Kane Halliburton. They are working together like a well-oiled machine. Check that out.
Ladies and gentlemen, a little bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge there as Connor Bell gives his comrade a little bit of encouragement trying to find their way forward. But let's have a quick look here at replay. Something happened with all sorts of drivers here. I think there's 5 drivers involved, Steve Saunders being one of them.
Yeah, and Rupesh Pineni is falling down the order as well. We might have to go to him after this. Steve Saunders then, looks like coming up to the hairpin. Is this another incident that we've seen a few times before? It is. He just missed the braking point and went super wide. That's the line that you take on the outlap in qualifying to get the speed down the front straight, but it doesn't do you much good in the race. Zomotor, it looks like almost doing the same thing. Well, it looks like a little bit of a network issue again there, but it seems that he ran a bit too deep and got into the wall ever so briefly. As for Pineni, we're going to see now. Oh, 3 wide contact into turn 1, and my God, that's ridiculous damage for Rupesh Pineni. Speared off the track there. He was caught in the middle of all of that, Zippy. That's just a shame.
Yeah, definitely a little bit unfortunate for him there. Certainly 3 wide is brave, especially going through turn 1. As you see, Connor Bell getting a little bit of an overspeed there. Don't get me wrong, it's working, ladies and gentlemen. They are starting to catch up to Niemanen. I'm not sure what happened. About the second lap out, Niemanen dropped back heavily there from Ian Joyner by about another 7/10 of a second. And that means he has lost the draft. He's going to be a sitting duck to the 2 drivers right behind him, the 12 and the 37 of Kane Halliburton and Connor Bell.
Yeah, and these two are still faster than Ian Joyner as well, but only by a couple of tenths of a second. So it could be intriguing to see if they can make some moves on our current race leader, but they are making moves on second place at the moment. It seems Nieminen has been unable to really carry the pace that he was able to earlier without the slipstream. Nieminen's fastest lap was way earlier on in the race, a 103.3. He's running about half a second slower than that at the moment. So, this is going to be a difficult situation for Nieminen. Across the line, 103.6s for both Joyner and Nieminen. That's an improvement, but 103.4s for Halliburton and Bell.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Academy coach is putting in lap time similar to radio station frequencies, and right now it's fair to say I'm liking the tunes that they're playing, as indeed they have made their way up, not one, not two, but 27 positions apiece there, as indeed they are trying to make a leap towards the outright win. Ladies and gentlemen, Ian Joyner is going to have to work hard at the end, but Nieminen will be first on the blocks, ladies and gentlemen. He's currently holding on to second place. Not only that, he is leading the AM class, ladies and gentlemen. His next serious competition, Felipe Pauls, who's back there in P5, but about 3 seconds overall behind.
And Pauls has a bit of drama behind to deal with as well. Mason Kuhn and Cairo Enns both looking to move their way up. Cairo Enns was actually the fastest car on track last lap, set a 103.352. That is stonking pace in the slipstream of the Split 1 championship leader up ahead. And you see the focus on Cairo Enns' face here. He is looking for big positions. Halliburton and Bell, meanwhile, have just made the move on Thomas Nieminen. Looks like that happened down at turn 2, and we just see them in the distance ahead.
Yeah, let's take a quick look here at the replay of that. Certainly my apologies there, but I'm sure we're going to see even more moves from these drivers. Let's take a quick peek and see what happened.
So slipstream, Nieminen trying the defensive line on the inside, but it actually looks like he let the coaches go. Probably a tactical decision there from Nieminen. He knows that they're faster than him, and maybe they can assist him in catching up to Joyner.
Well, there is another potential reason he's let him by, ladies and gentlemen. That could indeed be because he's got a little bit of a shortage of fuel going on. Don't get me wrong, Nieminen was incredibly quick through the pits, and certainly when they do go and calculate the fuel, it will calculate as if you've been in the draft. So all of a sudden, if you come out and you don't have that, you could find you're coming up short really quickly.
This is true. This is true. Very good point. So Nieminen might be making a throw towards fuel saving here. Connor Bell and Kane Halliburton, though, are working together so well that they're still able to make some gains on him, at least on the way down the front stretch. But Nieminen is able to stay with them on the infield, evidently. The gap for the lead now down to 2.3 seconds and slowly dropping, but maybe a bit too slowly for Halliburton and Bell's preferences here. It looks like Halliburton was actually slower than Joyner on that lap. Connor Bell was obviously quicker, but he had the benefit of the slipstream.
Yeah, certainly. And bump draft and spec racer Ford, it can be beneficial, but realistically, ideally speaking, you want to be able to leapfrog each other. But with this being like a big oval section, if you pull out the slipstream, you're just going to lose speed. So realistically, bump draft is the only option. But the question is it going to be enough, ladies and gentlemen? Certainly, Connor Bell doing a fantastic job there of nudging Kane Halliburton along. But are they going to be able to catch him? Certainly, look, he's right under the... Already, he's right behind. And there you go, contact, ladies and gentlemen. That's one, that's two. And I believe we're going to get one more before the end. Yep, backs out of it.
All right. Oh, it always strikes me how much the wall juts out there at turn 1. I remember, looks like maybe a switch between the coaches here as Bell takes point on Kane Halliburton. I'm surprised that no driver has actually hit that corner of the concrete wall at turn 1 yet, is the point I was going to make. But I'm sure we'll see at least a few drivers getting close before the end of the race. But now Connor Bell is the one leading the way in the quest of the coaches. Let's see how he does.
Yeah, now we've got to find out, is Kane Halliburton going to return the favour, ladies and gentlemen? I hope so, but don't get me wrong, we know these two guys will... they'll work together, but they will race each other as well. They might have decided, you know what, Ian Joyner's too far ahead. We're not making enough moves. Let's just have some fun together. We're going to have to find out. As ladies and gentlemen, I did just check the Discord. These guys are not communicating in the Discord. So certainly we're going to have to see. And then there we go. Kane Halliburton, are we going to see a bit of a nudge? A little bit.
Not quite as committed to the bump draft as Bell was, but then again, this is the first time Halliburton's been behind Bell, so maybe needs a couple of laps to get into the flow of things. Not much time to work with, though, as we'll go to a replay here of Zoltan Zomator. He has the number 15 of Jose Gustavo behind him on this replay, and Zomator runs wide at the hairpin, and, well, that's not the first time we've seen that problem, and it certainly won't be the last. Zomator, yet another driver who falls victim to the rear end going wide through the hairpin.
Yeah, certainly. It's definitely easily done, ladies and gentlemen. You start loading up a corner of the car, and I think when I was doing my lapping license, actually, it was described to me as if you've only got $1 to spend on grip. Well, don't get me wrong, if it's $1, you really shouldn't be in a car racing. But, you know, you can only proportion that in so many places. If all of a sudden you're going around a left-hander, you're going to really load up that right front, and then all of a sudden the rest of it becomes a lot less. And you load it up too much, around it goes, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a little bit of a look here further back here as Mason Kuhn now applying a bit more pressure to Felipe Pauls.
And he goes for the move into turn 1, gets on the brakes just to rotate the rear and get on a straight trajectory for the entry to turn 2. Nice move from the 79. Felipe Pauls didn't really have any response to that. Not that any response would have been useful anyway. And looks like Cairo Enns is going to get right onto the back of him from here. Pauls still has chances to make his way back past Kuhn, though. Still 10 minutes remaining.
Yeah, definitely, and having a good look at that camera angle as well. Cairo Enns did definitely get a little bit of damage repair. That front clamshell is looking a little bit tidier there, so that could be beneficial. But realistically, Mason Kuhn is not his target in the lead of that pack. The big driver he wants to be is going to be Felipe Pauls. These guys are battling it out there in the Split 1 Club Championship.
Absolutely. This is a very interesting sequence. Remember that Felipe Pauls is the leader on 204 points there. Cairo Enns on 185 points. And considering that they are fighting for sort of mid-top 10 positions, it doesn't look like there's going to be much of a swing either way, depending on who finishes ahead. But if Felipe Pauls crashes, then Cairo Enns is going to have a great advantage. By the same token, if Enns crashes, he's going to completely lose touch with Pauls and probably fall outside the top 2.
Yeah, certainly if you have a crash when you're racing this close, it could be absolutely detrimental, as indeed Rupesh Paneni has learned that the hard way, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly free wide. It's a possible move, but a little bit of a high risk one, and certainly he did indeed pay the price. He's now back all the way down to P30, and I believe still in the pits, ladies and gentlemen, if not disconnected at this point. Definitely unfortunate for him there, as we see these two drivers are indeed fine now. It's Adrian Hopp and Michael Hooper with Jose Gustavo just ahead. This is all for the Premier Class, ladies and gentlemen, position 5, 6, and 7.
Very nice battle. Gustavo, Hopp, and Hooper, meanwhile, for 9th, 10th, and 11th. Gustavo and Hopp have been fighting hard for the majority of this race, and the door is left open to the inside there, but this is one of those corners where you can really cut back on the exit, and Jose Gustavo showing that in style. An incredible run
nudge
down the front straight. Nudge and contact between the two of them. Adrian Hopp was not willing to give that one up easy. Michael Hooper is probably licking his lips here, because now this is a chance for him to take a position versus his countryman, but on the wrong line through turn 3. He'll have to wait for another opportunity.
Yeah, I think what happened there is that was one of the lessons you learn at the academy, ladies and gentlemen, is that you can try and compromise the line for your opponent. You don't have to move out of the way. You can literally pin them towards the wall, ladies and gentlemen. They want to make the corner. They're going to have to back out of it. Certainly, that's what you're going to hope for, some good, clean racing, ladies and gentlemen. But indeed, that was a good demonstration there by Adrian Hopp. But let's go and move in a little bit further up here, as Kane Halliburton and Connor Bell are actually catching up there to the back of Ian Joyner. Slowly but surely, ladies and gentlemen. They've got about 8 minutes left to do it. And then not only that, they've got to try and find their way past the driver, the number 18.
Yeah, and it looks like the gap is, again, not coming down particularly quickly, as it looks like a little bit of a wide line there for Connor Bell through turn 2 from that rear view camera. Joyner's pace is incredibly consistent, and, you know, consistency is what landed him the championship win last season in these very cars. So he has quite the opportunity to continue that here. 103.5 last lap. Connor Bell and Kane Halliburton running 0.2 quicker, but the gap, again, only sits at 1.8 seconds. They are not far away from getting the slipstream, though, and Thomas Nieminen is still within a second of the both of them, so he might be able to follow them here.
Yeah, Nieminen is very much, he's got to try and stay in the tow. Jake Enns very much cheering on Thomas Niemann as well. I've got to say, Jake Enns, really supportive of all the drivers we've seen here in the Almeida Academy, and indeed in the other shows we put on Pit Road Productions as well. Without a doubt, the #1 fan of the channel, and I've got to say, fair play to you. If anybody deserved a t-shirt, you would be the man. But I sadly do not actually have Pit Road Production t-shirts, certainly. And if we did, Reese would have one as well to match his hat. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, Connor Bell and Kane Halliburton, they are working hard. That gap, though, is still about 1.7 seconds to Ian Joyner.
Yeah, they're just chipping away at that gap, aren't they? Still 6 minutes and 45 seconds remaining in the race here, and we got to remember also it is a timed race, so there's a chance they might go another lap depending on when they cross the line. Some lapped traffic, though, is going to make things a bit interesting. Carlton Howard up ahead of our coaches here, and Joyner is about to come into close position with Rich Meesters. So I've got to wonder, how's the lap traffic going to affect all this? It might actually benefit Joyner and Niemann because now they have some slipstreaming.
Yeah, absolutely. There could be a good opportunity here. Just because they're lap traffic does not mean they're slow, and it also does not mean that they're going to get out the way for you either, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly, it's up to the faster car to make that pass. But right now, looking at the sector times, it does appear to go either way for each of them. Like, you know, one's quicker in one, one's quicker in the other, then it bounces straight back down, as indeed that is a car very much out the way there for the Sioux Academy coaches.
Looks like Rich Meesters let Ian Joyner by halfway down the start-finish straight. And if I was in Joyner's position, I'd be saying, no, I want the slipstream. I've been in that position many times before. But Joyner potentially has another friend in Philip Falcon up ahead. So let's see how these lapped cars sort out this podium battle, this top 4 battle. It's an incredibly intriguing race with Ian Joyner and Thomas Niemann and having much shorter pit stops, taking a bit of a gamble on fuel consumption potentially. Is it going to pay off?
Well, you say that, it looks like we've got a little bit of a scrap happening further back, ladies and gentlemen, as Cairo Enns has managed to find his way past Felipe Pauls. Mason Kuhn there, about 1.1 seconds ahead. It's fair to say he's pretty much cleared this battle, but right now, it is going to be between these two. This is for P2 in the AM class standings, ladies and gentlemen, and indeed, Felipe Pauls is exactly who Enns wants to beat for that championship advantage, ladies and gentlemen. He's got some catching up to do. Not only that, further back, we've got a battle happening within the pro class, ladies and gentlemen, between Michael Hooper and Adrian Hopp, with Jose Gustavo getting in the mix as well.
Yeah, these three have been together pretty much the whole race. The two Germans go side by side into turn 1, and it looks like Adrian Hopp was not interested in fighting that too hard versus Hooper. Of course, he's well aware that he has plenty of chances to get that position back. But Gustavo, potentially the outsider in this battle. Need to wait and see what he has planned. That's a very direct line and a lot of curb usage through turn 6. And a very stable line through 7 as well. It looks like more battles happening further back as well. This is just inside the top 20. Carlos Facania got Kimel Kasim up ahead, has the slipstream, but Kasim just a little bit of a fade to the right there, letting Facania know, I am not going to let you by into turn 1.
Yeah, some of these drivers are indeed duking it out pretty hard, and more battles happening throughout. But ladies and gentlemen, it does look like Ian Joyner is going to be under attack. That gap down to about 1.1 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, Connor Bell is coming, and saying that, Kane Halliburton's dropped back as well. Lap traffic may have been part of the equation.
Yeah, it looks like the coaches have now been separated thanks to the lap traffic. They have been unable to stay together, and this could ruin their run here. Philip Falcon jumps right out of the way there for Kane, and we will see, actually, is that Falcon? I believe so. It is. Yes, so that looks like it's going to bring Halliburton back in touch with Bell, at least for the moment, but still a bit too much time between them, and now I think they're just going to be driving as hard as they can to catch up to Joyner individually. The gap from Joyner to Bell sits at about 0.8 of a second, with 3 minutes still on the clock.
Yeah, certainly Connor Bell's been working hard. He's up 29 positions, and indeed, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get faster, Connor Bell and Kane Halliburton are the academy coaches. Then not only that, you've got Swelio leading the charge as well. If you want to learn from some drivers, ladies and gentlemen, indeed some great teachers as well. They're not just good drivers, they can teach, ladies and gentlemen. There is a skill set in its own right. Then you need to be part of the academy. Not only that, if you want to race in this league, you got to be part of the academy, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to, they've got to sort it out for this season, ladies and gentlemen, but certainly come next season, why not? Let's get you involved. Indeed, I'd love to see you make top split and indeed make it onto the broadcast.
Yeah, it'd be great to see you in one of these cars, depending on if we stay with Spec Racer Ford next season. This league does like to change cars every couple of seasons, but I do hope that we give the Spec Racer Ford a little bit more love before its time is up. We'll have to wait and see on that, though. 2 minutes now remain in the race, and another 10th has been taken out of Ian Joyner's lead. Connor Bell now has the slipstream, but Ian Joyner has the slipstream on Domenico Sayu as well. So there's plenty of potential there. Cairo Enns and Felipe Pools, meanwhile, they just traded spots a couple of times, so they are well involved in a fight at the moment. It would appear that Mason Kuhn has left the both of them behind. Enns going defensive into turn one. Oh, they've come together. Oh no! Cairo Enns around at turn one, a dangerous spot. Oh God, okay. That is going to, I think, be the end of Cairo Enns' campaign to stay in touch with Felipe Pools for the lead of the club class. He's fallen back now to P7. He's got Hop, Hooper, Gustavo, Zomator, and Lau all behind him, all together. And Connor Bell is now right on the back of Ian Joyner too. We have to take a look at what happened to Cairo Enns first, though. Defensive and contact in a straight line. Honestly, from that angle, I can't tell much about the incident.
Let's try a different angle, Reese. Have a look here. Let's give you your opinion on this one.
All right, so Paul. Oh, yeah, okay. So Enns moved to the right there. Felipe Pools, I didn't see change his line, so I think, unfortunately, that might be on Cairo, unfortunately. Meanwhile, Connor Bell has made his way into the lead, and Ian Joyner not fighting it too hard, but crucially, staying in touch. There is a lot of potential here for him to still take the win on the road. It looks like it's going to be the final lap of the race here, with 15 seconds still on the clock. They're still well away from crossing the line. So, does Ian Joyner have anything for Connor Bell in these final moments?
Well, it's not only that, he's not just got that, he's got Kane Halliburton right behind him. Don't get me wrong, Kane will be cheering for the Academy coaching team, but don't get me wrong, you know, he's got to make his way past Joyner. That's going to be incredibly difficult. There is lap traffic ahead, ladies and gentlemen. That's Carlos Picano, if I'm not mistaken. Indeed, Connor Bell, Ian Joyner, and Kane Halliburton are all going to want to find their way by as they go straight down the middle, ladies and gentlemen. It is a formation. It's Connor Bell. It's going to be the checker this time around. Can Joyner do it at the end? He's in a slipstream, but I don't think it's going to be enough. He's going for it, ladies and gentlemen. So close, 800ths of a second. I gotta say, he had his work cut out from, but Connor Bell makes it up 30 positions, ladies and gentlemen, and this is why he's an Academy coach. At least one reason. Kane Halliburton, I can't decide if that's a little bit of an elbow barge between the two coaches or a photo opportunity, but regardless, look at that. Absolutely fantastic stuff there.
Nothing wrong with a little smooch between bros. Anyway, that's they bookend our podium, do Connor Bell and Kane Halliburton. And man, what a battle that was. And what a run up through the field from our coaches as well. To take nothing away from Ian Joyner and Thomas Niemanen. They really played a close hand with their fuel strategy there, with the length of their pit stops. So I think they really deserve to be finishing up the top there. They took risks that others would not, and it really paid off for them.
Yeah, let's try and get another shot here. I'd like to see this from another angle. We're getting a little bit of differing opinions on this one. I'll see if I can go back a little bit further here.
Yeah, a little bit more to dissect from this. So this is Pools' angle, and we'll see again. Looks like they were rubbing panels through the oval, which is fine. Rubbing is racing, and none of them really got too much damage from that. Pools squeezing Cairo to the inside, which is a valid move, but I think Cairo maybe was still trying to cover him, maybe not aware that Pools was carrying such momentum in a straight line. Either way, it's that is a difficult incident, and to be clear, I'm not blaming either of the drivers in particular for it, just calling it how I see it. But yeah, that might be one for the debrief, I think. Yeah,
I mean, to me, it did look like a bit of a late move, and I think that's what happened. Just in my opinion, don't get me wrong. I'll call it how I see it, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't matter who you are. And myself, I admit to when I make mistakes, eventually. But certainly myself, actually. Honestly, if you ever do have an incident, certainly, and you're not quite sure, send it to somebody to some of your comrades to review. Honestly, my mentor, Mr. C.R. Reed, he has had the fortune of knowing me for about 6 years now, ladies and gentlemen. So please send a sympathy card out to Saskatchewan kind of direction. But I'll often send him if I do have a race, just say, you know, what do you think to this, ladies and gentlemen? Certainly the academy coaches do review incidents as well. But ladies and gentlemen, let's have a look here at the results as Connor Bell makes his way up 30 positions and takes the race lead. Ian Joyner took second with Kane Halliburton in third. Thomas Neiman, he leads the AM class for this race, takes fourth overall with Mason Kuhn in fifth, Felipe Pauls in sixth, and then Cairo N still able to get seventh out of that regardless. So thankfully not too expensive there despite the incident. Michael Hooper took eighth with Jose Gustavo in ninth, and then rounding out your top 10 was Adrian Harp.
Yes, indeed. Zoltan Zumator, the one of the first of our front runners to actually go into the pits, ends up finishing 11th ahead of Kevin Lau, with Tyler Harker and Valdes Vencevicius behind. Vencevicius, the most profitable of the students tonight, taking 8 positions up from his starting spot. Bas van der Lee and Philip Marvin, 2 and 5 positions down respectively in 15th and 16th. Kevin Adrian finishes in 17th place. Tuka Valkiasuo and Anthony Ori finish exactly where they started in 18th and 19th ahead of Kemal Kasim, rounding out your top 20.
Yeah, look there in 21st was Carlos Picania with Dominic Sayou there in 22nd. Philip Falcon and Rich Meeses, the 2 Canadian drivers side by side there in 23rd and 24th, with Philip Masson in 25th. Chris Gangaro definitely had a little bit of an oversteer here today. He was in 26th with Jeffrey Atkins in 27th. Steve Saunders, one of the more seasoned gentlemen among us today, ladies and gentlemen. He's there in 28th with Carlton Howard in 29th. And then certainly the free wide scenario involving Rupesh Fernani did not work out in his favor as he finished in 30th with the one and only Mr. James Conrad in 31st.
And it looks like that is the end of the field there. James Conrad not taking to the start, unfortunately. Hopefully we see him in action next round. But for the moment, we are joined by the winner of the race on the road, our resident coach, Connor Bell, one of 2. And, well, Connor, that was certainly an interesting one. You and Kane were on the attack from the get-go. The first half of the field seemed a little bit easier to catch up to than the second half.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I caught some damage, front end damage early on. I ran into the back of Kevin Adrian, so my apologies to him there. Yeah, so ran around with a little bit of damage. Ducked into Kane's draft for the first half. That sort of allowed me to keep up. And then the wonderful ARA pit crew did a great job repairing the front end of my car during the pit stop. And yeah, we're able to work together to catch Ian and came home with the win. But that was really great racing today.
Certainly was. I was waxing lyrical about the track itself at the top of the show, and I'll put my hand up and say I really hope this track makes appearances in future ARA seasons, because it really produced some great racing here. I think Rovals in general are underrated. What do you think?
Yeah, totally agree. Daytona's a good one. Charlotte's a good one. I can't think of a bad Roval. So yeah, Kane said at the start of the week, this was one of his personal favorites, and I must say I'm leaning towards that as well. It was tons of fun, so I would definitely want to do it again.
I think I can think of an example of one bad Roval, and that's Kansas Speedway. Check the archives on my YouTube channel, Southpaw Racer, to figure out why. But in any case, Connor, a fantastic drive from you and from Kane to bookend the podium here. And hopefully we're catching you again next round. First endurance round of the season down, and well, we've still got plenty of this season left to go. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Connor Bell winning the race there. And Zippy, I understand you've had a chance to catch up to Ian Joyner, the star of the students today.
Well, I've got to say, Ian, the student may at one point become a master, as you have been a force to be reckoned with. Certainly last year's split one winner, and I believe we actually won the whole thing overall as well. But don't quote me on that. But certainly it was an incredible pit stop, but the quickest of all drivers as well, 19 seconds. I was a little bit worried for fuel at the end for you. Tell us a bit about how you managed to get such a solid result.
I think it was really just fuel saving in the first. It's a long race, long stint. Mason took the lead, and yeah, it was pretty steady really for an hour's race. It didn't fly by, but I'm sure there was a lot happening. It's a big field, but relatively stable at the front. Yeah, I thought I was probably in good shape when I saw when Mason pitted, and yeah, and you had a few more laps to go, so it wasn't really any magic in the pits. I just didn't need that much fuel because I think I'd used less in the first part of the race.
Well, certainly I did have sympathy for you there, joining up against not just one but two academy coaches, and certainly it's been an absolute pleasure to see you have such success. But the endurance format as well, definitely a little bit different there. Tell us, from your personal preference, which kind of layout do you prefer? Do you like the sprints, or do you prefer more the 1 hour endurance?
I prefer the sprints, really. Although I think over time I've kind of, I sort of appreciate the art of the endurance racing as well. So the pit parties we did, this track brings people side by side. It's really easy to have accidents. So surviving the full hour intact, there's definitely a lot to that in itself. And then just making the pit stop really work out as well. So it's a kind of a different kind of racing, but ultimately I'd rather do the sprints because you sort of disincentivized to race early on when it's endurance.
Well, certainly one of the drivers who was applying a good, healthy amount of pressure to yourself for a good portion of that race. He is one of the academy coaches, ladies and gentlemen, and indeed a force to be reckoned with. Kane Halliburton, ladies and gentlemen, welcome him to the booth, up 27 positions here. Certainly, you and Connor was working very hard to catch up to the back of Ian Joyner. Tell us a little bit there about the strategy, and indeed, Ian, by all means, chime in a few moments there and tell us exactly how you felt with these two trying to catch up to you.
Pretty intense. Actually, seen both of them. It was fun. It's really good. They'd obviously done a nice job because they started quite a bit further back than me. I thought I was going to hang on there. Got a little bump from Connor, which was unfortunate, and I think that also kind of came about. Just unfortunate when I caught Domenico as well. It was just put Connor right on me. He was obviously going to throw everything at it on the last lap. I think without Domenico, I might have just hung on. They were maybe closing like a 10th every lap or so. Might have just got there, but it's just a shame that didn't manage to cross the line in front, even though not really racing him. It would have been nice to catch him in front.
Well, certainly, I definitely understand the struggle there. But Kane Halliburton, are you indeed present, sir?
It would appear not.
Well, I guess on this occasion, we are going to have to save the velvety voice of Kane Halliburton for another endeavor. But ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the second place finisher overall, Mr. Ian Joyner, driver of the number 18, and indeed a former Almeida Academy champion. What a fantastic result, and I've got a feeling we're going to be speaking to you again in a later show.
Thanks, guys. Speak soon.
Great stuff from Ian Joyner and from Kane Halliburton. Our final interview of the day is going to be with Cairo Enns. Now, Cairo, you were making some big moves in that race, and you certainly had a lot of potential to give your fight with Felipe Puls for the club championship a bit of a kick, but unfortunately it seems you were the one who got kicked into the wall.
Yeah, it seemed to be a bit of an unfortunate circumstance. Philippe looked like he was going to pull out to the right, so as soon as I saw that move, I followed. Turns out he wasn't going as far as I thought he was, and it just kind of got collected, and it is what it is.
Yeah, it's one of the incidents you can certainly take a lot from and learn from, because the nature of the track, I think, plays a big part in it as well. Like that entry to turn one, you really have to be high commitment to get through there, and when you're stuck on a narrow line like that, I totally understand why you did what you did.
Yeah, T1, it's sketchy at the best of times coming in at the optimal angle. Coming in that narrow, I really wanted to get back to the outside, and I just had to hold on to it as best I could. I actually moved my brake bias a little bit because I knew that it was going to be a bit of an issue, and still didn't work out, but hey, there's always next time.
Yeah, it certainly is. Got to say, very maturely handled, Cairo. I know if I was in that situation, I'd be going off my rocker a bit more than you are right now, but it's a long season. You got plenty of opportunities to make up for that, so congratulations at the very least on still managing to maintain a P7 finish, and hopefully next week goes a bit better for you.
Thank you. I'm hoping so too.
Excellent stuff. Cairo ends there. Last driver we're talking to today, and that is going to bring things to an end, Zippy. What a round that was here at Phoenix International Raceway 2008 road course. I can't believe this circuit has finally gotten an appearance on a major broadcast, and it provided one of the best races I've seen in a while.
Yeah, definitely the racing was a lot of fun, and certainly it's one of those things where, you know, Oval in itself is one of those things, oh, it looks easy, they're just turning left. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot more to it. But when you get road course drivers, indeed road cars, on those scenarios, it can create a kind of unique scenario. Certainly the draft becomes even more influential. I think in some ways, Road America could be potentially a good comparison of just how important the draft is, if anything, even more important with such a couple of long straights there at that venue. But I've got to say, it was some fantastic racing. The moves we saw going into that left-hander at the start were absolutely incredible. It wasn't just a case of get one car, it was a case of get two. Cairo Ends, who we just spoke to, definitely perfect demonstration of that. It was brave, and it paid off, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly, it was good fun. I did feel for him at the end of there, and I do have a feeling, you know, something to review. It looked like a late move, and, you know, nothing against you, Cairo, on that one. Maybe a learning experience indeed, but it could go either way. But that's why we're not race control, ladies and gentlemen. We do not want to go down that avenue, and we will happily wave the flag and let somebody else do that, indeed. Or let somebody who makes developed software do that for us as well. Certainly keep your eye out for that. We do know a few things on the mix, but I gotta say, it's been an absolutely fantastic season, and I'm loving as well now that we are able to keep an eye on a bit more of the points championship as well. We're not just going to have the overall, we've got the Split 1 Premier, and indeed the Split 1 Club, ladies and gentlemen. We did have a comment earlier in the Pit Road Productions chat just saying, how do I watch the Split 4 broadcast? Sadly, it's only Split 1 that's broadcast, and don't get me wrong, we would love to broadcast all 4 splits. Obviously, there would be, we'd need to, you know, work out some finagles and stuff like that to be able to pull that off, but don't get me wrong, keep an eye on the Academy, you know, things are to come. I did hear talk of maybe some more things in the horizon. I can't say any more than that, but Reese, it's been about it. I'm trying to think of where we're heading to next week. By all means, refresh my memory on that. Montreal. Oh, yes, that is gonna be about it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Wall of Champions. We're gonna see how many claims at that round. But Reese, give us your conclusion today of the race, and indeed, you know, what you expect to see next week.
My conclusion is let's race at Phoenix more, because it produced a fantastic event, and I'm really hoping to see it on future schedules. Great performance again from Ian Joyner and from Thomas Niemanen as well. Turns out when you get into the endurance mindset, it seems those are the drivers to watch. Montreal, I'm really looking forward to next week. It was the first round, I believe, of last season when we debuted the Spec Racer Fords in this league. And it really showed us what we've seen over the last couple of seasons. Just fantastic racing all up, fantastic battles. I will be counting down the next 7 days.
I gotta be honest, I need to get out more, ladies and gentlemen. It depends on how you look at it. In this crowd, I think I might be all right, but certainly I am absolutely stoked for next week, ladies and gentlemen, and indeed for more shows here on Pit Road Productions. But you know what we probably should do, Reese? Let's take a quick look here, have a little bit of a break here from Swellio, and then say goodbye to the show.
Yes, indeed.
Now he's here teaching all his secrets to all these drivers. This is Almeida Racing Academy,
where every champion has a starting line.
The sim racer turned real world superstar, Swellio Almeida.
It's Connor Bell racing in his own backyard for the very first time in the NASCAR Canada Series.
The workshops helped out so much. Something about battling with somebody faster than you, it just pushes you that little bit further, and I was able to just keep developing my skill.
I can kind of commit more with the exit there. That was good. If you do take sim racing seriously, it does impact your racing technique for the rest of your life.
I know how the car is going to perform around these corners because of the model I have in the sim. Just the benefit of sim racing when you go into real life, I don't think people quite realize it yet.
You have infinite track time is the biggest factor. You are able to try so many things, and the physics that are simulated in the sim nowadays, especially iRacing, are so close to real life.
Swellio Almeida is a master at his craft. He's outclassed a Le Mans driver, a European Le Mans Series racer.
These guys are among the top 0.02% in the world.
Designed to create champions.
First NASCAR Canada start. First NASCAR victory for Connor Bell.
Connor Bell standing on the podium here today.
This is the Almeida Racing Academy 3.0.
Wait a race, buddy. Wait a race.
And with that, we here at Pit Road Productions will say our goodbyes to you. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in on this broadcast, both on Pit Road Productions and on Swelio Almeida's channel as well. Fantastic to see everyone in the chat engaging with the show and helping us out here in the booth. And, well, we'll see you all in 7 days' time at Montreal. And my name is Reese Gardner, Daniel Zippy Salmon, alongside me in the comms box and also producing behind the scenes. We're Pit Road Productions, and we'll see you again very, very soon.